change. So that's who we are.
Thank you so much. How many of you in the audience played Pokemon Go? So, that's the first large-scale foray into augmented reality that we have really seen, right? In the
And
sense,
I hate calling it augmented reality because it really is a video overlay on top of the real world, and it didn't really augment the world.
it's sort of like
It's
but
sort of.
at least it gave people the feel for what it is, one large scale consumer reach of this technology, right? So in a sense, there's a lot out there. We have a lot of jargon out there, we call virtual reality, we have augmented reality, and then we have mixed reality that is coming in, and then they have something called side reality, right? All the new stuff. So,
And at SVR today, the guy who runs the VR conference that's going on down the street called it XR, XReal.
so
I'll do two parts to this. The first is whenever there's new technology, there's a lot of jargon. It is generated by deep thinking technologists, and it is not intentionally designed to confuse the rest of us, but it often does. As we go forward in any platform, the words of how the programming languages, all the things you've had to learn as technologists go away from end users. They just care about stuff and what they do with it. No one here, when they buy a car, thinks much about carburation ratios or the principles of torque. They want to know that the car goes and it gets good mileage and they can afford it. We right now have all kinds of nomenclature, and now the marketers are suddenly getting involved, so we're going to have much more nomenclature.
Intel calls it mediated reality. Apple's going to come up with a new term. It's going to get messy.
Yeah, and basically there are a few terms that mean things. You should do this part, but we look at three terms: VR, AR, and MR, mixed reality. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. VR is when you're in a black box and you see a virtual world. You see only pixels or polygons right around you. You don't see the real world. AR has been used for showing something on your phone that augments your face. Snapchat is a good example, or augments the world. Snapchat is a good example of this. When you use the filters on Snapchat, it's putting stuff on top of your face. It's augmenting your face. It's changing your face. And Facebook just announced a new version of that yesterday, and it should be, right? And mixed reality is when you wear glasses on your face, and it's doing that to the entire world, and when the things are stuck to the real world. And that requires something like a Microsoft HoloLens, right? With sensors that are seeing the world in 3D and putting things on top, or actually soon replacing those things, because I can replace Shel and make him a SpongeBob. Think about that one.
Let's vote on how many want. No, never mind.
Make him a supermodel or something else, right?
Just one adding. I think that all the terms that we just discussed are going to disappear. I think a few years down the line, we're going to have something that doesn't look very much different than this. And they're probably going to be referred to as smart glasses. It's a term that keeps popping up. But it's a consumer term. It's what matters. You're going to put on something that looks like everyday glasses, maybe a little bulkier, maybe connected through Bluetooth to something in your pocket. But they're going to be smart glasses. The argument about platforms and all of this will go away. Standards will come in, prices will come down, and everybody's going to wear them all the time, all over the place.
One reason I was so adamant with Shel 2 years ago is I started seeing these things are coming to consumers, right? I visited the Consumer Electronics Show this year, and Loomis showed me a pair of lenses from Israel that have a 720p monitor built into the glasses and weigh about 4 ounces. And they're about the same size as the Snapchat Spectacles, which today only have a camera in them, right? So I started seeing a whole lot of things like this happening and they were starting to speed up. And that got me to convince Shel that it's worthy of doing a book.
Well, let me make a concern.
Leave him.
Okay. You mean you'll share with me? Robert, after 12 years, you're becoming a nice guy. It's, when it comes to fundamental patterns in technology, I really don't doubt Robert Scoble because he's been right more times than anyone I know, and I've been in this Silicon Valley industry for over 40 years. Robert calls it right through a process of osmosis that I don't think he can define. But he doesn't miss much. What I do to Robert, though, is I keep pushing back. I keep pushing at the edge and saying, wait a minute, you're saying this, that isn't really what's going on. What do you mean? And I keep challenging it. I keep forcing grit to get into the shine. And that's the combination, I think, that's worked so well. I was thinking of that when I was in the traffic jam on 19th Avenue.
Self-driving cars are coming, and guess what?
Yes.
The industry hasn't yet figured this out,
It
but
would have given me 2.5 hours back today.
yeah. Self-driving cars are a very similar technology to the mixed reality glasses. And you're soon going to see the two merge, and that comes straight from the CEO of Mercedes, right? So, I mean, we can just keep riffing all night because what is coming this year are a bunch of these glasses in the next year. And the glasses are going to be 3 to 4 ounces, and they're going to come from companies like Apple and Facebook and Snapchat and Amazon and Microsoft. All of these companies are spending billions of dollars in R&D per quarter, right? Huawei alone is spending billions on R&D of this kind, building optics, building faster GPUs, building faster processors, building 5G networks so we can get the data down to these things, on and on. So over the next 4 years, you're going to see radical changes to media and to our experience with computing. And I think there's only one company that can bring us another paradigm shift, because only one company has brought us the first 3 transformations.
May I?
Yeah.
So, would you like to ask us what the first 3 transformations were?
Yes. But before that, right, like I would, there's something that I really want to ask, right? All of us, like when we were growing up, like, we tend to tell stories, right? And we want to live in a world where we write our own rules, right? So that's the virtual reality that we live. And then suddenly, like, oh, I wish my mom was here, or I wish I had an ice cream. And suddenly you start imagining that whole thing. So this is great, right? So this is like a real world intuition that we are trying to make that happen. And
Last week we did a VR thing where Buzz Aldrin gave us a tour around Mars, on the surface of Mars. I mean, education is about to really get crazy.
yeah, it's so, it's great. Like anyone can predict, because predicting, like you read all these articles and suddenly you can form an opinion and you could predict it. But really, like, what's the logical step, right? Why, like, have we come up with this? What do you think this 4th transformation is? And what do you think of the previous 3 transformations that are out there? And I'd like to really get the logical way of this whole thing. Instead of the hype, right? Really.
I'll do it quite quickly so that afterwards you can all go over, buy our book and see the long version of this part. In the beginning, there was a mainframe that's in the basement and nothing much happened except for a few scientists and computer PhDs. The first transformation came when it reached the desktop and people could type on a keyboard and do things. And then we had knowledge workers and there were more people using it and people got closer to the interface of digital technology. Second transformation came a few years later. You could argue that the first one was the Apple II was the first computer that let you really do that. Second one was Apple again. It was called the Mac, and now you could point and click and make things happen, which meant anyone could use a computer, and it got into the home. And now anyone was using a computer, but a few years later Apple came out with the iPhone. And you could do things just by touching. And when you could just touch, then anyone could do anything everywhere, and thus the iPhone cured boredom while you're waiting in lines, checking out of lines that are disappearing through new technology. Those are the first three transformations. And there are some companies right now who are still adjusting to the mobile mind shift, as it's called. And I would argue that companies still trying to make that adjustment are already doomed. They have their customers who are aging. They have their ways, their systems in place, but they're missing everything that's happening in the culture and in technology of people who are under, say, age 40 today. And that brings us to the fourth transformation, which you want to take it over from there?
Sure. I mean, these are all user interfaces. By the way, 2 of the transformations were done on one little street in Cupertino on Danley Drive. I just visited there the other night. We're going from from typing commands on our computer like DOS to using a mouse to soon wearing glasses. And the glasses are going to let you compute virtually on virtualized screens, and maybe even virtualized phones in our hands, and maybe even virtualized watches. Think about in 3 years you're going to do this with your hand. I'm not going to be wearing a watch. Maybe I will be for the sensors that are going to see inside my skin. But
Even though I have an analog device, I can see time in real time right here.
But that's not why you're going to need a watch in the future, because you're not going to need the watch for the display surface, because when you do this, your glasses are going to put a virtualized panel right here with your calendar and your time on it, right? Every time you do this, you're going to see that panel. And that's going to be how we compute in the future. We're going to have as many screens as we want around us. We're already starting to change how we code because of this.
Or even project directly into your retina.
Yeah, but stay with the user interface for a minute. Because the user interface is radically changing right now. I had a 4-year-old girl come over my house who had never played with VR. And I didn't tell her what it was for. She saw the headset and the controllers lying on the floor. She picked them up, put them on, 4 years old, and figured out how to turn it on, figured out how to find Job Simulator, and figured out within 1 minute, because I have film of her doing this part, within 1 minute she was copying files from one file cabinet to the other in Job Simulator. Now, when I had to learn those commands in DOS, how many hours did we all waste learning how to do file copy in DOS? It was really hard. And this is why each transformation brought more people into this industry. There's still 4 billion people around the world who haven't even gotten on the internet yet and haven't even seen a cell phone. You know, God bless, we have 2 billion who have phones in their hands, but this next revolution is going to get a few more billion people into our world so they can communicate with us because it works like the real world. You pick up something with your hand or you touch something with your finger right in the air, right? And this is going to lead to radical changes in our experience.
I want to dwell on one part that Robert talked about. I like naming generations. We changed Generation Z in our book to the Minecrafter generation because we have a generation of kids who are now in high school who learned to code before they went to kindergarten. They learned to share with kids all over the world despite barriers of language or political issues. They now, when they do something really, really cool, they don't look for proprietary claims and licensing and lawyers. They go to YouTube and they just give it away. And now Robert describes yet another generation is coming along that I call ZLCs, Zero Learning Curve. They pick up a couple of things on a neighbor's floor, and they start doing stuff. Now, to merchants or businesses, the enterprise, it doesn't matter who, when these are your customers, your employees, or your competitors, what are they going to expect from you? Or are you going to be the one providing a sheet of carbon paper when they have to do a report in the years 1990 instead of 1970? This is changing everything fundamentally because we have a generation now being born where the iPhone is becoming this old thing. They begin life after the iPhone was in the hands of hundreds of millions of people, or similar smartphones from competing brands. When you look at the future, when you talk about the next 3, 5, 10 years, forget about aging boomers like me. I'm so tired of that adjective, because the other adjective generation is tired of hearing that they're young millennials. 10 years from today, the first millennials will start being grandparents. What do you think their grandkids are going to expect when they go shopping? So I don't know, I think that's a good place to taper it off.
Yeah. Robert, you were talking about, like, every quarter, all these big companies dumping in, right? So, but yet we don't see like as much of proliferation in terms of the number of devices that are out there, and especially because for the AR, the VR, it has to be mobile, but we don't have a hero device yet, right? We still struggle with our battery power, we still struggle with the content, and so what do you think is going to happen? Because we're still not there yet, but yet we are predicting and we are talking a whole lot of things.
We're about to see billions of dollars ship. And they're gonna ship first in phones, and you're starting to see little hints of it with the latest phones. They're getting edge-to-edge OLED screens. They're wrapping the screens around, like the Samsung 8 that was announced yesterday has a wraparound screen on the edge and stuff like that. What Apple's going to do is an edge-to-edge OLED screen that doesn't have any holes, doesn't have any buttons, it's just a flat piece of a screen. And that way it can plug into a headset, and now we can play VR with each other, and we can see through the screen or get a pass-through of some kind and see virtual items on top of the real world. We get augmented reality. And Tim Cook has been very adamant for a year now that AR is a big thing, and much bigger than VR. He thinks VR is really cool when he talks to the press, but he says AR is way bigger, and I agree with him. Because VR, you're not going to wear it at a shopping mall. You're not going to wear it at the football stadium. You're not going to wear it at driving a car. With AR, you are, right? Let's just talk about cars, right? The F-35 fighter jet cockpit pilot has that AR on. And one of them told me, I'll never lose to any other plane in the world for 2 reasons. One, I can see you through the bottom of my plane. I can see where you are. Your F-16 is underneath the plane. But that F-16 can't look up and see that guy because they fly at night. And he's stealth, he's not, right? So his sensor arrays can't pick him up. That guy can pick up underneath, right? And can see the outline of the plane underneath. And number 2, he said, I can stop, and you can't. So he can pull back on the stick and fly right back behind you at night, right? And see you and blow you up. We're gonna get that in our Tesla or our Mercedes.
They're gonna blow up old.
No, we're gonna get the glasses we're gonna get the same thing that the F-35 fighter jet pilot has, but we're gonna get it for around $500, maybe $800, maybe $300. The price is gonna keep coming down. You stay alive long enough and everything gets cheap, right? Steve Wozniak showed me a dye sublimation printer in '89, and it was $45,000, and today a $70 printer is better. So just stay alive, and you'll get all the rich boys' toys.
I have and I don't.
Yeah, you've got a lot more technology today than you had when you were my age. Right?
Yeah, but it still isn't all that cheap. The iPhone you're talking about is going to cost, what, $1,000?
How much was a mega RAM in 1989?
About $1,000.
Yeah. How much is it in your iPhone today? Cents. Right? So yeah, we get a lot of technology for cheap. Even though you still have to spend something on it. We're gonna get, so you're gonna sit in that car, maybe a Tesla or whatever. Let's say with Elon Musk at an Apple event, maybe, or Magic Leap event. If Magic Leap and Elon do a deal, I start believing in Magic Leap again, right? Because I'm gonna buy a Model 3 car. And the glasses are going to see the dashboard. They're going to know that you're sitting in a Model 3 car. And you are going to know exactly where these glasses are in space, right? Because as soon as you see the 3D map of the world, you know these glasses are going to know exactly where they are. And you can overlay stuff on top of the dash. You can overlay stuff on the windows. You can get rid of the windows. windows, you can get rid of the door, the door. We've already demonstrated this. ODG, who's a company right over here in San Francisco, already demonstrated this with BMW. You can have see-through car, right? That's cool. So I can see the guy next to me, or I can see the kid behind me in my blind spot that I'm about to run over and cause a real mess for my life. And then I'm going to be able to do all sorts of fun stuff. Like, hey, show me the quantity LiDAR that's going to be on the new Tesla. And now I get to see the data off those LiDARs in front of the car. So if I'm driving through smoke or sand or smog or something, or night, I can see ahead easier, and I can see everything. And then I'm going to say, can you show me the infinite road? Because it already has a map of the entire world. When you see these self-driving cars in San Francisco with 2 LiDARs in the front of them, they're building a 3D map of the road, and Mercedes told me their map goes up to 30 feet on the street and maps everything, right? Every sign, every tree, every pothole, every piece of paint, everything. And they're building a new SLAM-based map for that road. And now I can see infinite road ahead. I can turn night into day with my glasses. So now I don't need to have eye strain anymore. I can just see the road the way I would want to see it. But then he's going to say, but dude, it's a self-driving car. Why do you even want to look at the road? Why not watch a TED video? Why not look at your spreadsheets? Why not play some Frisbee with Shel?
That's actually a pretty good sci-fi movie you've shown right now. Like,
It's 4 years away.
It's like, someone who is, drank the Kool-Aid. But we
No,
know
we're
it's
saying he's
real
showing
world,
it.
right? So
It works in R&D labs here. It's just 4 years away from us.
there's a lot more practical problems out there for the real world usage, right? So
Like building Disneyland. Disneyland Shanghai was built in VR, right? Building new cars, you go over to Ford's R&D lab, they have VR rooms. They build cars in VR. They don't build physical cars anymore.
But
I mean, they
I
do.
feel like a ping pong ball.
but the real world is different, right? So for example, now everything that you see, everything that you feel, you have to capture all of this data. You have to index this. You have to stitch it in contextually, all of that. This is great at the prototype level when they show all these great movies. That is awesome, right? But are we there yet, right? Like, are we trying to sell something like shiny and trying to see that we are getting there, but we are not there yet?
On behalf of Robert and myself, seriously, I absolutely agree with both of you, and let me explain how. In terms of evolution, the mixed reality world that we're talking about is merely at this point crawling out of the evolutionary swamp. We're just getting little stubs on our sides and they're going to become legs. Our gills are shrinking and we're developing lungs. But we're not there yet. You look at the stuff right now, it's expensive, it's ugly. VR, you can't walk down the street with that. You'd be a candidate for the Darwin Award. But look at how fast it's come. 3 years ago, there was something called Google Glass. We put it on the cover of our last book together and people joked.
By the way, I always, whenever I think of Robert, I picture the shower thing of yours.
That'll be on my grave.
You know something? The image of Robert Scoble in a shower has haunted me long enough. There are 2 things I don't want to discuss. The other is the President of the United States. If I have to choose the 2, we'll go with Scoble. But more seriously, 3 years ago, the state of the art we're talking about was Google Glass. And it was a fiasco and should have been. Except people who were technologists looked at it, instead of laughing at it or hassling somebody in a bar or talking about what was wrong about it.
Was it Robert who coined the glass filter?
No. I had a Flipboard magazine that was called Glass Holder.
As I was saying, technologists looked at the same things that the press and everyday people laughed at, and they started saying the magic words of technologists. I could. I think I can. Maybe if. And in 3 years, the best and brightest companies, the best and richest companies, and the brightest and most visionary technologists started seeing stuff. And the stuff you're seeing now is still in beta, still awkward, still not pragmatic. But in 3 years, look at how far we've come. Now stop. In the next 3 years, we're going to hear from the likes of Apple, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Google. Then we have this other tier of companies. Oh, I forgot about Asian companies like Samsung, Huawei. Then we have magically, we have little pups like Meta. We have ODG that's been around since 1999 doing it in industrial, and they're all getting into the act, and they're all competing with each other at a pace that we've never seen before, more fiercely than we've ever seen before, with more money being thrown at it than has ever existed before. Now, they're all crazy, or you're right, one or the other.
The reason you're gonna get these is the cost curve is about to switch. You get as many monitors in a pair of $500 glasses as you want. And they're bigger than that monitor. That costs, how much does this projector cost? $1,500, right? And you have to have a screen. I'm gonna get a bigger screen than that, and I'm gonna get 10 of them around the room for $500. So now if I'm a stock trader, I'm gonna be wearing glasses because my boss is gonna force me to, because it's gonna be a lot cheaper to have him look at, or her look at 10 screens in front of him with all the data that he or she needs to look at. And you won't be using electricity. You won't be generating carbon. At some point, human beings start caring about that. Maybe not for the next 3.5 years, but sometime in the future, I think we are all going to decide that's probably pretty important to care about, and we're going to start taxing carbon, and we're going to start taxing things that aren't coming from the sun, right? So the glasses are an answer to a whole lot of things.
So I actually wanted to table this.
There's just turn that around a little bit. Let me go back to the kids I mentioned earlier, because well, the employer is going to require that. The smart kids are going to require that, and they won't go to work there. And if you insist on that, maybe they'll go across the street and put you out of business.
They'll be a lot more efficient too.
Yeah, but yeah, I actually wanted to table this question to the end, but now that you said glasses are going to be everything, the big thing is the health benefits. Like, you know, all the health implications that you would have with all these augmented and virtual reality glasses, right? So because what I feel is, you know, there's a lack of fundamental research in all of these companies where, you know, years together you studied ophthalmology, you studied like, you know, how, like, you know, our eyes perceive vision and how we see it. And you know, all these companies do not look at it. Like, how do you have corrective refractive index? Like, you know, how do you make sure that you adjust the focus of these lenses that you're really looking at? And you know, they just brute force coming up, you know, these devices after devices, and like, you know, they will cause like a lot of these health, you know, issues. Plus, all of this probably is also.
That's not what Pfizer says.
But
That's not what Pfizer says. Pfizer's already doing this kind of research. They're spending billions of dollars on this research. They're already doing research on ADHD, on Alzheimer's, on depression, on pain, and on other things. And they are finding that VR is a drug, and it's helpful to our brains. It's a brain hacking device. There's a doctor down in South Africa, and Shel, I'll let you in a second. There's a doctor in South Africa who works with professional athletes. She puts light into their eyes and makes them better. She took the worst rider on the South African cycling team in terms of falls per race. She fixed his eyes by putting light into his eyes in a pattern. It's a really weird pattern. For 10 minutes a day for 6 months, he now is best on the team at that task. And Pfizer says, you're absolutely wrong, and they're doing the research.
It's again, I violently agree with both of you. We really don't know the long-term
that's why
impact.
he's sitting in the center. You know? Two extremes and one in the center.
You know, I thought this was my best shot at getting hold of a microphone. We really don't know the long-term impact of this technology. Just like when everybody was guffawing outside of the Village Smitty's park and the first Buick went pumping by and somebody shouted, "Get a horse." We had no idea what was about to happen to the world. We don't know the negative sides of this, but historically shows that we are going to go forward. In this case, we have most of the smartest companies on earth pushing the envelope as fast and hard as they can. And the side effects, every single thing we've done in technology since somebody started chipping a flint into an arrowhead has had very bad overturns, has been a life-taking event. Cars, planes, boats, trains, all of that has had unwanted, unintended, bad consequences. Yet at the same time, for better or worse, the world has prevailed. I think it's overall for the better. And what I do know, and what we write books about, is not whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's the coming thing. It's going to happen as sure as the night the day. It's going to happen faster than most people realize. There are companies that are going to sit cross-armed and say, not on my watch. Nope, nobody's going to do blogging on company time in this company. And that quote was taken, I first heard from an employee of a company called Sears. Guess what happened?
See ya.
It's what Robert is the champion. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure what the world looks like 20 years from now. But what I submit to you and to everybody else in this room is to think about it as it happens. Because if you cross your arms and say, it ain't gonna happen, it's bad for health, you're just gonna be left behind because that's what's going to happen. It's just not what's gonna happen.
Yeah, but, the thing that worries me a lot is, as is with the technology, with all these cell phones, people who have kids, like myself, right? The kids don't talk to parents anymore. They're always on the phones and...
You talk to your parents? I didn't. I didn't have a computer to blame. Well, I did when I was 13.
That's a good one, but, still, like they're so detached.
They have television.
I at least talk to my How about this?
You didn't have television when you
How about this, right? I at least talk to my friends, right? Now the kids don't even talk. So they're so, they're detached.
Here's the thing though, if you live in Shanghai, it takes an hour and a half to drive across the city, and I never stopped seeing high-rise buildings like for an hour and a half in the same damn city. So if your friend lives on the other side of the city, you're gonna have to drive to them and spend 2 hours in traffic like Shel did to get here. We already, if you have an HTC Vive in your house or an Oculus Rift in your house, we can already play paintball against each other. We can already play frisbee with each other. We can already bowl with each other. We can already go ski jumping with each other. We can already go archery. We can already go to a nightclub and dance together. We can do a lot of things in just VR. So the kids of tomorrow are going to be playing together in a whole new way in their living room with their friends over the internet than they are today.
But they'll be much more detached, right?
And you know that.
I disagree.
Wait a minute. Wait. Stop. You have what? Is that faith belief? Is your vision
No,
based on?
it's not a fake of it's a question I'm asking.
Do you have children?
Yes.
How old are they?
She's 10.
Okay. Are they active in social media, in
Not yet.
computer games?
Games yet, but not yet.
Do they play them socially?
No.
Okay, I've got a 14-year-old grandson and a 10-year-old grandson. Both of them are lonely kids for different reasons, or have been. Both of them got into Minecraft. Both of them have friends all over the world. They share things all over the world. My grandson, 14-year-old Michael, told me how his friend in Vietnam downloaded his code off of YouTube and sent him, I forgot what he said, but he sent him the work he'd done based on Michael's code. This means that Michael may not be as friendly with the kids in his neighborhood, but what he did do is find out there are other kids in the world like him who share what he shares and can talk about it. 12 years ago, we wrote a book called Naked Conversations, and when it was done, it was just a little too late, but the next story I ran across was about a teenage girl in Adelaide, Australia. And she started a blog where she took one of the first photo blogs. She took pictures of hummingbirds. Everybody in Adelaide, Australia made fun of this kid. She went around taking pictures of hummingbirds. She posted them and she discovered that all over the world there were other kids who liked hummingbirds. She even found out that there was a kid in Thailand who had taken a picture of a hummingbird that was just like the one she saw in Adelaide, Australia. And then I forgot what you call bird experts. But they got all excited because they never knew that this bird had such a far range. And these two children taking pictures, blogging, ended up being brought to Europe because they were getting a special award for discovering new breakthrough, I don't want to get into the details, breakthrough facts about hummingbirds. The nature of play is changing. Who kids play with is changing.
I'm on a riff.
I know you are.
Okay, I'm going. Can you hear me now?
My ADHD brain wants to get involved.
Okay, well, actually, speaking of which, why don't we talk about Milan, who is Robert's autistic son, who never recognized me until he really got into VR. And now when I walk into the house, he doesn't know me by name yet, but his face brightens and he hugs me. And that only started happening after the kid got absolutely immersed, inalterably immersed in virtual reality.
Here's a different way to look at your claim. It used to be that we computed by sitting at a desk and we were locked in the desk. That's a pretty antisocial thing. And then later we got to have one in our hands. I was at the front row of a concert at Coachella and a lady was working next to me and I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm running my business." And I'm like, "You're running your business while watching a concert in the front row at Coachella? That's pretty cool." That freed her, right? She's no longer tied to a desk. But she's still staring at that phone, and the kids today are staring at their phone or their iPads or their laptops or Google Chromebooks or whatever. They're still stuck in that mode. Soon they're going to be wearing glasses where they look through the glass to the real world. I see you. I could see you if I don't turn you off, like in that mirror. Because I can do that soon. Because the 3D map knows all the pixels behind you, or voxels, volumetric pixels, and can get rid of you. And soon we're going to have microphones. In fact, in my pocket I have a headphone with 6 microphones on it. I remember seeing that at Microsoft Research as an array microphone. It was a research project, and it was like $200,000 to build 6 microphones. Now you get them for $150 on your headphone cord. And it lets you do all sorts of neat stuff. And these glasses are going to let us compute while looking at the world. We're going to change the world. We're going to build things, virtual things, on top of the world. We're going to augment physical things. Already this is happening. Shel and I visited Sephora's R&D lab, and they're already building augmented makeup. Makeup that you can try today on their iPhone app. It's already there. You aim your camera at your face, it maps your face in 3D, and then puts makeup on top of it. And the makeup, they spent a lot of time to make sure it was color matched to the physical product, because they want the physical product and the virtual product to be the same. So already there's a team at Sephora that had to do that. That's a new kind of job, new kind of way of working, and a new way of looking and being social with each other. Because soon you're going to have kiss makeup on, and it'll be much more enjoyable to look at you than look at you this way, right?
And I just thought I'd get my word in edgewise on health where I was trying real hard and I didn't. Because Robert got rightfully passionate. But I just want to list a few of the things that are already happening. There's a guy who works for a French company called Discern, but he's in Massachusetts. His daughter was born with a congenital heart defect. And there was nothing that could be done, there was no technology that could help her. So he, in his spare time, between projects for Boeing and Tesla, developed a virtual human heart, 16 feet tall. You walk through it. Well, you and I don't. It's not an amusement ride. It's where doctors go. They go in with 3D models of the patient's hearts, and they can examine this huge heart from the inside and see what the defect is in the patient's heart, and therefore hearts can be cured. His daughter has not yet been cured, but she's lived to be 25 because medical science is moving. That's one. company called Mindmaze, after Magic Leap has more venture money than anyone, I think it's $1.1 billion. They're in Switzerland. They use VR to make games, but the games are just kind of playing around because their real business is using brain waves and virtual reality to cure and treat major diseases. The cure goes to schizophrenia, which they predict they will cure within 3 years. Behind that, they're working on Parkinson's, stroke trauma, the pain from the amputation, Parkinson's, not my favorites, which are heart disease and diabetes, but maybe they'll wait a few years and help me out in the end. I'm not done. There are also at least 4 companies I know of that are working on virtual reality as a replacement for opiates in surgery, particularly in young people where teens being operated on have a tendency to become addicted to morphine. They're getting rid of the danger of that. They're just using VR to do it. In education, which we haven't talked about at all, in China, where they've done a commendable job of getting population control, but not enough, they can't produce teachers to keep up with the parents producing babies. So they're working with virtual teachers, which is one that you can really freak out. This one freaks me out a little. But the idea is kids put on headsets, and now they have a teacher that is custom designed to be the teacher of their preference, an older man, a younger woman, whatever they want. The personality will be one that the student will design. The curriculum will not be. They will be taught at a personal level, at the level where they learn best, not at the average level for a class. When the kid looks bored, they do a quick little pop quiz, which keeps the kid on interest. Everywhere you look, you can say yes, but what you can only really look at now is what is being done. Yeah, we could end up with a world where everywhere you look, wherever you walk, there are ads popping out at you. They'll know your name, they'll make special deals. What's the name of the guy I always forget who has a series of YouTube? It's a world inundated, every square inch of the world is like Times Square New Year's Eve. And it begins...
It's a Japanese guy.
Yeah.
Hyper-reality is the video.
Hyper-reality, yeah. They're wonderful to watch. They're absolutely a nightmare, and they could happen. I mean, there was a time when television was supposed to, what was it, David Sarnoff, the general at NBC, said, TV is wonderful, we're going to give him symphony, we're going to give the world symphonies and great arts and Death of a Salesman. And he was inspired. He hired Arturo Toscanini to be the NBC Symphony Orchestra. Around the corner, there was a guy named Bill Paley. He started a company called CBS, and he was a chain smoker, and he looked at what Sarnoff was doing, saying, screw that crack, we'll get My Love Lucy and sell cigarettes. And guess who won? Now, I don't know what happens down the line with this technology, but once again, maybe for the last time, technology is coming along that's going to transform a great deal. And it gives me great hope. Because I really don't know how the whole story ends. Technology is either going to save the world or it's going to destroy it. And I, for one, not for me, but for the sake of my grandkids, really hope it comes out okay. And in that, you got to stake a whole lot of faith in AR and VR and the mixed realities.
I have a lot of questions on the technology, but I would love to open it up for the audience because I don't want to take up the entire airstay. So I'll open it up for the audience. Please feel free to ask questions.
And I'll come out and get you.
Now we're down to one microphone.
Oh, wow, yes.
All right.
So a very pertinent question, given your long commute over here. I've got a long one myself to work off. And when will these technologies help us have virtual meetings, hallway chats, the way we do in offices today, and avoid these dreadful commutes?
They are already.
He has the microphone, so he'll answer.
They're already, and I'll like you in there. No, keep going on the audience.
You are not in charge, he's in charge, she's in charge. Answer the question, son.
If you have a HoloLens on your face, I can already have that kind of meeting with you. It's getting harder to tell that you're not next to me when you're in front of a 3D camera. let me answer that a different way. I talked to the guy who's making ADI, who started a company called ADI. It's a volumetric camera company that's designed to make images for this new world. And the camera was the one that was used to film Buzz Aldrin and put him on the surface of Mars, for instance. And I asked him, how soon is it going to be before I can watch football on my kitchen table and walk all the way around the football game like I can over here? And he said 4 years. I've talked to other people in self-driving technology. How long are we going to, Mercedes says it's 2020 to 2025 before we get a level 5 self-driving car. I start looking at the optics. The first optics are going to be pretty rudimentary, like the HoloLens, but they're going to be really small. When are they going to be multifocal point like Magic? That's what Magic Leap promised their investors. They had multiple focal point optics, so they work with your eye much more naturally and don't give you eye strain, stuff like that. And those are coming in 2 years or less. So you can start seeing where things are coming out into the market, right? And there's a whole bunch of products that are lined up. They're like, if you go to San Francisco Airport, you can see the planes lined up landing. They're all lined up. And they're all lined up for the next 3 years. The next 3 years, you're going to see incredible new products for our computing. In 3 years, I'm not using a laptop. I will state that definitively. So now,
Can I have your...
yeah. But to answer your question, 3 years, we're going to have virtual meetings. Already, if you have an HTC Vive, I can play Frisbee with you over the internet. It's incredible, right? The problem is nobody has an HTC Vive. How many people here have an HTC Vive? One guy. I can play football with him and him. There's 4 people in this room. This is nuts.
And this is Silicon Valley.
By the way, this is why I think only one company can save us from this. Only one company sold 78 million iPhones last quarter, right? Only one company is going to sell 150 million the next time they show us a phone with the stuff in it. It's coming between now and the end of September. We're going to see it. So they're going to sell 150 million iPhones within a day. Think about that, because how many of you have done the refresh the page to get an iPhone kind of thing, or stand in line? I stood in line several times for 36 hours to buy an iPhone, right? Yeah, I hit the crack button 45 minutes 2 years ago to buy an iPhone, and before I could even get to the website, right? So in the first hour, they're going to sell a lot. They're going to sell more VR devices in 1 hour than the rest of the industry has sold or given away. Think of Google Cardboard is giving away Google Cardboards at every conference you go to, right? Because they're cheap. Apple's going to sell more VR devices in 1 hour than the rest of the industry combined. And then we get to play football against each other. And we get to have business meetings because there's several startups building new kinds of offices where we're going to work together on things. We're going to get new kinds of 3D development tools. The guy who built the robot I put up last week, he works on CAD, right? His whole robot was designed in CAD. Why is he looking at a flat screen? Why isn't he looking at a virtualized version of his robot and be able to walk around it with his team and think about it? We're going to work in a new way.
Yes.
Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say.
Working.
The question actually was teleconferencing, actually. And everything Robert said really does address that. But right now, when we have teleconferencing, the state of the art is whichever one of the video flat screen conferences you want. The good news is we've gone over 25 years to the point where it doesn't suck. But it isn't even close to being there. You now get rid of the screen, immerse yourself at a table, a virtual table, maybe the table in your office. And I'm over 1,000 miles away from you, and I do the same, and I'm sitting at my table, sort of like Isaac Asimov wrote in a few of his books. And now we're actually not in the same space, but we can see each other's eyes. We can see when somebody smiles. We can fist bump or shake hands, that can be done. Somebody can go to the whiteboard in their room and you see it in your room. And all of that technology will be available in the next 3 years. Whether it's affordable or not, I don't know. Whether the world will...
From Apple. Is Apple affordable?
Let me finish, Robert. I'll let you speak for your 4 score and 20 years. I have questions about the speed of adoption. Robert just says, it's there, we'll buy. And I think that the number of early adopters there will be now is greater than there has been for any technology that has ever come before that. But companies live on budgets, they live on systems in place, they live on all of these quarterly, measurable, deliverable, blah, 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 ad nauseums, which is why I kind of like startups. They don't live on this stuff. They're looking at stuff that's never happened before. In a few ways, we have all this historic data of what has happened, and we have this remarkable phenomenon that may be a culmination of what happened when a bunch of guys walked out of Fairchild and started Intel. This may be the point where it hits its finest hour. It may be the point where the dreams of young Andy Grove and people like that start to come to fruition. And if so, that conference is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's going to be rather commonplace, and it's going to be very affordable. That's what I think is going to happen.
Hey, so as fascinating as AR,
I vowed when we talked that I was going to remember your name, but I forgot it.
CJ.
CJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as fascinating as VR and AR is, I freaking love this stuff. But there's certain sensory ways we can perceive the world, right? So obviously visual is what's gonna get at. I've tried types where you can listen to it through Bose or something like that. Through the other types of senses, so through taste, through touch, right? I know Oculus is working on touch, virtual touch. How are the others going to be seamlessly integrated into the experience so we almost can put them in there, almost like a framework?
This is a 40-year product cycle. We're literally just getting our Apple IIs. It's like 1976, right? And since 76, the PC has improved every year. Every year, the memories get faster, the processor gets right. The experience of using a PC is a lot better today than it was back in 76. And the same thing is going to happen. I've seen already gloves under development. There's sensors that have ultrasonic speakers that touch your fingers, so you can touch virtual cloth and it feels like cloth. I saw another thing at Mobile World Congress where it makes your hand cold or hot. And there's certainly a lot of scent research being done. Sephora, by the way, you can walk into a store in San Francisco and try 41 virtual scents in the store. You didn't even know that, right?
Yeah.
And they spray it in the air. You don't have to put it on your skin anymore to try
They don't
it.
spray it, it's dry. There's nothing
Yeah.
to spray.
Well, it's a little powder that goes into the air. But I played a VR game called Ghostbusters Experience in Times Square in New York, which is done by a company called The Void, which is in Salt Lake City. And they're building theme park VR experiences, or they have a term for it, but it's cool experiences. And they have a $10,000 haptic gun that has a recoil to it, or a
Reaction.
motor that makes it do something when you're firing it. You're wearing a pack so that when the ghosts go through you, you feel them go through you. It's really crazy, really weird. You're also in a room that was specially designed, and the virtual that you're seeing is mapped to that room. So at one point, they forced you outside of a building onto the side of a skyscraper, and you're on a painter's scaffold. And when I was the first one out there with my seven friends, eight of us were playing this together. And as soon as I got on it, I was like, this is shaking like a painter's scaffold. And it started feeling like I was falling. And so I grabbed instinctively onto the railing, because I was also experiencing vertigo, because I was looking down at 800 feet at the bottom of the traffic. And I grabbed onto the virtual rail, and it was real. There was a real rail there, and it also was shaking, and that really freaked me out, and I said, I gotta get the fuck off. And it forced you into another room, and the Stay Puft guy eventually starts blowing away that room, and you feel wind go through the room, because you're in an open space all of a sudden, because it blew away part of the building. And you're firing at the Stay Puft guy, and as soon as you kill him, you start smelling marshmallow in the air. So they're using as many senses as they can to immerse you to make your brain feel like you're really in this experience.
Talk about
And
sound.
we're just at the start of this. I
Talk
mean,
about sound.
yeah, you
You
can
know,
talk.
you know more about it.
I mean, sound is important too. We're doing all sorts of new research with moving sound around, even with 2 speakers, right? I saw that last year at the Unity conference. NVIDIA is doing all sorts of research on how does sound waves bounce off of physical things, right? When you're talking, your sound, the sound out of your voice is hitting his jacket a little bit, being absorbed and bouncing off of this floor. And it's sort of like lighting in a GPU, right? They're having to figure out how the sound gets to you and recreate that sound accurately so it sounds like this room, right? And these new headphones I got are starting to do that kind of processing because we're shrinking electronics to be closer and closer to our senses. That's what's happening. We're getting things really small. Facebook last November bought a micro LED company. Now why would a social network buy a micro LED company? This company makes LEDs that are smaller than your head of hair, than your hair. Because it needs to shove a lot of data into a fiber line that goes through the sea, right? And he's buying those and he's building optics where there's going to be little tiny LEDs that are really, really bright, shutting light into an optic into your eye, right? So we are going to see a lot of crazy stuff over the next 40 years as human beings if we get to live that long. But the next 3 you're going to see a tidal wave of shift. And that's why we call it the transformation.
Yeah, I want to point out a couple of things. All the terms you hear end in the word reality, and what we're doing is creating an altered state of reality. How we communicate with this technology is definitely going to change. I've been paying a lot of attention to the eyes, which is the fastest external part of the body, also to the brain, which is the fastest part of the body overall. But I was a judge at South by Southwest in some awesome startups, and the one that I would have voted for to win is one that uses sound. It's sort of the way bats navigate, that's how people will navigate. Since Austin is famous for having 7 million bats under his bridge, I thought it was appropriate they did it there. But the way we behave in reality, the way I'm trying to get eye-to-eye. Stay on one side. Thank you. Just for a second. The way we do things in reality is the way we will do them virtually. Now that sounds weird, but that is what is going to happen. So you do things now with smell. Smell's a tough one. I don't know just how that's going to come along. Virtual fragrance in the store is one thing, but when I am watching a movie and I can smell the onions burning on the skillet, that's a whole other thing. But the point of everything we're saying is this is all going to happen much faster in the next 3 years than in anything you've ever seen.
Yeah, Mike Wilkes. A lot of this.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how you doing? A lot of this work I see so far is consumer oriented. What's your thought about industrial applications, field service kind of stuff?
It started in the industrial side. The term augmented reality was invented at Boeing when they invented a way of putting a headset on electricians so they could get the wiring right in the new 1883 was a 747 or 720? 7 I think it was a 747 because it was a really big deal. And if they got one wire wrong in a million miles or many miles in a wing, it would mean instant death to somebody and a big lawsuit that shareholders don't like. So they invented a way of augmenting reality. Since then, the most successful company I know in providing hardware is ODG. And they've been exclusively for the government and industrial. ENA, a very little known energy company, one of the 6th largest energy company in the world, they don't have retail, so you haven't heard of them. They're in Italy, they're exploiting oil in the North Sea. They're hiring oil rig workers from Africa, training them with virtual reality, and then flying them out into the North Sea. In virtual reality, they learn exactly what to do in case of an oil rig disaster such as BT experienced in the Gulf of Mexico. So the real solid, profitable, predictable stuff is already happening in the enterprise. Robert and I are very focused on the consumer side of things. We always have been. I like to word it that I'm interested in where people touch technology. That does include the enterprise, but it's not nearly as interesting as when I can have my favorite basketball player take me for a walk through Nordstrom's and telling me what he's buying. That's a lot cooler to me. And I'm also much more interested in how kids are going to, I'll do my quiz. 1066, what's it mean?
The year 1066.
The year 1066. What was that?
Magna Carta.
Yeah. Where'd that happen? Now, 1066 was a battle in the town of Hastings, and it would shape Western history for 1,000 years, or almost 1,000 years. And none of us know anything about it, really. We had to know that 1066B was the right answer on that multiple choice test we had. And then it's forgotten. The numbers in many brains, but it doesn't matter. Now when you teach history, people will see it. When you talk about the glories of war, kids may understand it's not all glorious. When you want to describe Buckingham Palace or the Taj Mahal or the White House, who would want to go there anymore? But you will now be able to take children on a tour of it. Same thing with health. We are doing things that have never been done before that just sit back and you think about it and it's a better way. It's not different, it's better. So I'm getting carried away, but I just wanted to show off that I knew what 1066 was about.
Nagesh Maligari. Thanks for coming and talk to us about the different transformations. You mentioned about the 4 transformations. The recent announcement by Elon Musk about the new Neuralink company and project, do you think that is the 5th transformation? And if going with that hypothesis, going there it's going to be validated, when do you think it's going to be coming?
If you say yes, I'm not doing the book.
Yeah, asking us to do another book right now is like asking a new mother to have another baby. We still, the pain of this one is still very fresh in our mind. Yeah.
Give me the microphone.
Hold on.
What happens is Robert goes all over the world, he talks me into writing a book. Then he keeps going all over the world. And I'm locked in a room with a candlelight over my Underwood typewriter, and I write this book. They don't let me out of the room. They slide pizzas underneath the door, flatfish under the door. A Frisbee fooled me one day. You know, so the next book is a term that just makes me cringe. Okay, Robert.
Yes, is the answer. The 5th transformation would be a deeper brain interface than the visual interfaces give you, right? But we need to get the visual interface first, because that's how we're going to bootstrap the next one, right? We couldn't get the glasses without the iPhone first, right? And we had to go through the 3rd transformation to get to the 4th one.
There will never
not be a next best thing until there is nothing.
And plus, for 40 years, you're still going to need visual to have that feedback loop, even if you can think, you know, where did my keys go? And it will say your keys are over on that table, you know? That's coming within 7 years or less, 2 years, right? Because these sensors that you're going to be wearing on your face take 2 million pixels of depth, and they're going to remember exactly where you laid down your keys, because it knows the world, right? This is the breakthrough I had with self-driving cars. If you talk to like Austin Russell, who just got $60 million today, he runs a company called Luminar Technologies. It's a stealth company. And he's building a new 3D map of the world, of every surface of the world. And he's building new sensors. So the next self-driving car has 3 new systems you have to pay attention to. The sensor array on the bumper, which is probably Quantergy or Luminar. And these sensor arrays are focusable. They're LiDARs that are semiconductor based and they're focusable. Right now you see the car with a LiDAR spinning, which is 80 lasers making a map. But that's not going to be how our cars are going to look in the future. No, Mercedes wants to put it in the bumper and make it look cool, right? The second thing is there's a company called DeepScale, which is building a new kind of artificial intelligence. We really haven't talked about AI yet. So this AI...
That's because we want to save time to sell books.
Yeah, you can go over
When we
there. I'll
stop
talk.
talking, they keep telling us to stop talking. and I
No,
wanna
it's
sell
okay.
books.
DeepScale uses the 3D map. Now keep in mind, think of this room with a grid of pixels on every surface. Think of this room with a grid of 3D pixels on every surface, including you, right? So there's the real world, and there's the augmented world, or this new SLAM-based world. And the AI is going to do a diff. What was here yesterday? What's new? Always asking what's new. What's new in this room? What's new? What's changed? Is there a detour sign that wasn't there yesterday? I have to focus the LiDAR on that, spend some energy to think about it, and come up with an answer of what to do with that new information. You know, if there's a child running across the street, that's new, and the car has to decide that. And the same thing is going to happen in our glasses. When we use these new iPhones, the reason they have 1,000 engineers in Israel working on your next iPhone is not for the sensor. That was built 4 years ago. I saw that 4 years ago. It's for the AI, because they're teaching it that that's a Macintosh, and that's a separate object from that table, and that's a table that's on top of a floor, and that's a human, and a chair. They're going to be able to sit virtual humans next to you soon. Like, I've seen this in labs already, right? So, as we know the world, we're going to be able to change anything in the world. I'm going to be able to put video on you, I can change your skin color, I can put a spiky hairdo on you, I can do anything. And you're getting tastes of this on Facebook and Snapchat right now, right? The whole world is going to work like that. And it's going to be mapped. Now, my son, who's autistic, he doesn't know to look around the street for cars. He just, his brain doesn't work like that. But his glasses are going to say stop, because it saw a bus coming this way. Because it already had to do that for the self-driving car. It's the same technology. So the glasses are going to help us live. The glasses are going to be memory aids. We talked to Jim Margraf. We built a company called iFluence about that. And now it's running mixed reality at Google. And he says in 7 years, you're going to have a really amazing memory aid that's going to even complete your sentences. Right? Because it's going to know how you talk, how you think, how your emotions are. Right? When we get these brain sensors there that Elon's talking about, we're going to be able to do a lot of weird stuff with our brains. And control the computing in a new way. So there'll be a new user interface probably 10 years from now that our brains are going to interface with. Right? But today we have to go, hey Siri, can you put the Hubble telescope view on the room? And now all of a sudden, all of us are sitting inside the Hubble telescope view, and we can, explore the universe in a new way.
Let's thank Robert and Shel.